Hi, I'm Jaylin Borden, and today I'm going to be talking about the importance of the Electoral College in today's society. Americans who go out to the polls and vote do not technically vote for the president. They vote for the 583 electors who will vote for the president and the vice president. These people who elect are made up of the Electoral College. The president of the Senate counts the votes in a joint session of Congress. There is an elector for every member of the House of Representatives, which is 435, and for the Senate, it is 100, plus an additional 3 for the people who lived in the District of Columbia. This year's election had a record number of voters registered, with a whopping 161 million voters. That made history for Joe Biden. Along with those numbers, there was multiple speculations on the Electoral College being inefficient and not necessary to today's society because people believe that it should only be decided upon popular vote. However, we should not abolish the Electoral College. The Electoral College is essential to this nation's political backbone because more people's votes will be represented statewide. It provides fair elections and validates each individual state's needs. There is a reason for the system to be set up to accommodate all the states' needs and to not overlook smaller states. If we use the popular vote, we run the risk of the election being determined by a very few densely populated areas and regions. While this may not seem bad, it would mean that candidates would only have to address the issues people face daily, and not regions of sparsely populated areas that face different issues would wildly be underrepresented. If anything, they should change the way the electoral seats are assigned to the states, but not abolish it as a whole. Presidential candidates would only have to campaign to the densely populated states because they would have to focus on the problem in other less populated states. This would be detrimental to catering to the needs of the United States citizens as a whole. It would only focus on those specific states that are in the need to be campaigned at and would overlook everybody else. With no electoral college, these states would be created or would be catered by the government, and smaller states would not have the funds to help their issues because they are simply not a priority. This is the importance of preserving federalism. Robert Longley is a U.S. government and history expert with over 30 years of experience in municipal government and urban planning, and he says the Founding Fathers also felt the Electoral College system would enforce the concept of federalism, the division and sharing of powers between the state and national governments. This is why it would not be fair to abolish the system because it was built and set up by the Founding Fathers to ensure that the smaller states would get the attention they needed. The reason for controversy when discussing the topic of abolishing the Electoral College is because many people view this system as unfair, resulting in discrediting the popular vote. While it is noticeable and justified why people would be angry at that, many people also believe that it gives too much power to swing states. This also causes more states to feel that their votes do not count because they are not that state that might determine what the election outcome would be. But this is not necessarily true, and it would not make much of a difference if a Democrat in California did not vote. But it would, however, make a difference in Florida, Ohio, or Arizona. The Electoral College is known to clash with the popular vote, which is the biggest critic of the system developed in 1787. The Minnesota Post says, the Electoral College system further distorts the one-person, one-vote principle of democracy because electoral votes are not distributed according to population. This is a piece of evidence counter-arguing why that this would not work. The Electoral College is set up to be fair for states so that there are highly populated like California, New York, and Texas would not decide the election for the entire country. The city of San Francisco has more people living in there than the entire state of Wyoming. If the president were elected by popular vote, they would campaign using platforms that are tailored towards the needs and wants of the people living in San Francisco and disregard the very real issues that people in Wyoming have to deal with, which is not fair. The Electoral College forces candidates to address issues that are all over the country. Abolishing the Electoral College would result in many states without major, highly populated cities to lose their voice in elections. The magazine of Monmouth University asked Chris DeRosa, a PhD and chair of the Department of History and Anthropology, to share his insights of the system. DeRosa says, "Somebody wins, somebody gets a majority of the electoral votes. If presidents were elected purely by popular vote, a candidate could win the presidency with less than 50% of the vote. If you have more than two parties contending for the presidency, you might have somebody winning with 30% of the votes, and that's a ticket to an extremist candidate." This piece of evidence shows that the efficiency of having the current system for a clear winner, and that is why it's there. Not only that, but changing the system would require changing the Constitution as well. Abolishing the Electoral College would be more complicated because states with higher population would have more of an impact on voting rather than less populated states. This could lead to certain states being more represented on one side of the ideological spectrum concerning policies. More specifically, since more populated states are more left-wing, it could lead to misrepresentation to moderate policies. When discussing fairness in elections, the Electoral College's purpose to ensure that each state gets a say in who is going to be president of the whole nation. So it is a very collaborative idea of the system, and is why it was built the way it was. The Electoral College is important to today's society because it is essential to this nation's political backbone, because there's more people's votes will be represented statewide. It provides fair elections and validates each state's individual needs. The thought of abolishing the current system sabotages the majority of the country's rights by overlooking issues that are smaller in a population spectrum. The purpose of the Electoral College is to provide fairness and to provide a fair election with a winner, and to have every state represented as a whole for this nation. Thank you.